well, fall semester, really, but fall semester.
I feel the opposite. It's funny.
But spring break comes around and my mom works. She's like, she goes, it's 6 or 5. I come back from spring break and I don't want to do anything for the last 2 months.
You're not
alone. I spring break, like, would like conversations going on, like, I have to go back to school.
I know.
And I was like, yes.
I'm going on a cruise during spring break, so I'm very excited for spring break. I'm counting down 116.
Yes.
All right, good morning. It's nice to see you all. Did everyone have a good Thanksgiving? If you celebrate Thanksgiving, I think I gained like 4 pounds that day. It was a good day, right, for me. Anyone do anything fun last week? Go anywhere? Anything fun other than eat too much? I spent 7 hours in a Verizon store. Yeah, it's my exciting, right? For Black Friday deals, 7 hours.
Exciting.
Right, I went in, I was like, I need to upgrade these 3 phones and add 2 lines, and 7 hours later I got to leave. But I got a new watch and a new phone, so I guess I should be grateful. But 7 hours, and there was 7 hours without a phone, so it was like, I'm so honored. Right? I was so fun. Beside myself, just yeah.
So like over the break, while everybody was eating turkey and doing this typical Thanksgiving things, I spent my Thanksgiving boarding an application, a little computer program that I'm working on to an archaic Windows operating system for embedded devices called Windows CE. So because I like messing with stuff for just pure fun, because I have pure enjoyment out of making these old operating systems and hardware things do things that they weren't designed to do. And
Nice.
It's literally like it's I guess that's kind of unusual like optionality.
As long as it was fun to you, that's all that
Yes.
matters. That sounds awful to me. I'm glad it was fun for you.
I'll recommend this for anybody else. Painful.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. See, we should have switched. You could have, somebody else might be like 7 hours in the Verizon store, not bad. Like it's all relative, right? Trying to decide if my 9-year-olds are worthy of cell phones for Christmas. Trying to decide. I lean toward no. They think they're worthy. I don't think they're worthy yet. I got them phones. They're in our house if they earn them. But I don't know. I don't know if my kids deserve them.
Maybe like a DS or something.
What was that?
Maybe like a DS or the game console that's handheld.
Yeah, they have tablets that they've had forever. It's just like, I don't know if I want to give them we're holding the phones over their head as leverage right now. So it's like every day they're like, I'll vacuum, I'll clean, I'll do this. And I'm like, this is amazing. How long can I drag this on? Right. We keep telling them when you stop fighting with each other so badly that it makes us want to pull our hair out, then you'll get the phone. So fingers crossed. So anyway, I hope you had a little bit of restful time. This is the hardest part of the semester. We were just talking about this up here. We have so little left, and I know it's overwhelming, right? We're not talking about stress or anything today, but I know that you're all very familiar with stress at the moment. There's a lot going on, and I'm right there with you. It's the same for me. So try and hang in there. Know that we literally have 4 classes left, and that's it. Okay, and I don't mean that in an overwhelming way. There's like a very clear light at the end of the tunnel. We are almost there. So for us as a class, we have today and Wednesday, and then Monday, and then your final. And that's it, right? Your face says it all, right? It's like shocking, but it's also a little bit sad. I'm going to miss you all. Like, I'm always so sad when the semester ends. I'm like, I'm used to you, and we have like our little culture, and then it's like, okay, bye. And I'll see some of you, but not a lot of you. Like, that makes me sad. So I get sentimental toward the end, just a fair warning. Like, there will be a lot of lasts and like dragging things out next week. Okay. So it's coming, right? Just to warn you. I'm very sentimental that way. But for us, what we'll do today, is we will talk about the movie. So we'll talk about the worksheet and the film a little bit in connection to this. I'll highlight a few things, but for the most part, you were kind of covering this one on your own as it related to the movie. And then we'll move on to chapter 15, which is really short, but it's about disorders of aging. So we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. And then our last classes will look at forensic psychology, so psychology and the law. We also have, speaking of stress, I'm sorry, our final paper is due today. Okay, so I gave you that little bit of extra time. Hopefully that was helpful. I know some of you emailed me, a couple of you emailed me over the week last week to have me look at it, but it is due by tonight. If you miss the deadline, you can still turn it in late. It's 10% off per day, so better late than never, but try and get it done as quick as you can. It is due by tonight. Are there any last questions about the final paper? It's worth the same as an exam, so spend time on it. Hopefully you've already spent a lot of time on it. If not, you know, you've got some hours left in the day. But you know, are there any questions, anything I can answer? Is that a hand? It's like almost a hand. Yeah, if it's anything after that point, Canvas won't let you turn it in.
Oh.
So you have to email.
Okay.
So please, like, tomorrow is better. By all means, tomorrow is still like out of 90 points. You know, if you're not there, it's just something to weigh. But yeah, once it hits midnight, right, turns into a pumpkin. No, I don't like after midnight, it won't let you submit it on Canvas. So just have to email. Anything else about the paper? Once that's done, right, really what we have left is our final exam, which is just a third exam on Canvas. It's not cumulative or anything like that. You're welcome. Cumulative exams are the worst. But we do have some interesting topics left. So today a little bit not as fun, but I think forensic psychology is one that people tend to get a little more excited about. Yeah. 12 years. No, I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I would probably have them done by, I would hope by next. Like through the weekend, probably I'll have them done. So they're due by tonight. I mean, yeah, I'll be grading them throughout the week. So what you'll see is like the grades will slowly populate over the week. So some of you will get your grade pretty quickly. And then the rest of you, I'll have them done by the weekend for sure. So that way you know what you need to get on that final or whatever grade you're hoping to get. Usually these papers are, I mean, it's a paper, so papers aren't fun, but like, I think they're kind of exciting in the sense that it's somebody that hopefully you're interested in. So I look forward to reading them. If you have any last questions about it, feel free to email me or ask me after class. Otherwise, don't forget, it is due by this evening, okay? So what I want to do, I want to give you maybe just like 3 or 4 minutes, find a few people around you, just a couple of people, whatever's convenient, and kind of chat about what you came up with for Artie. And then we'll talk about it together and I'll collect it after that. But you can compare some of the symptoms you came up with, what were the diagnoses you came up with, and then we'll go over it together. So I'll give you a few minutes and then we'll come back to our big group. She's like, it's been rough. It's been rough.
This is how I feel on the inside right now.
Oh yeah, you don't want to know how most. I'm sure most people are right there with you.
Yeah. I just read it.
Yeah. Like, well, that's not good words.
Bob has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even that role.
That's it. I watched I missed I said what? Whoever the girl that was yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for letting me know. So I don't think I like offended you.
So like my mom's the oldest. She's the oldest.
Let's finish together for a little bit and then I'll collect it from you. I hope you enjoyed watching the film. I know it's an older movie, but I think it's a really great chance for discussion and I think it's a really good practice for that final paper as well. So let's go with number 2. Let's get a list going. I'll try and paraphrase, but I want to get a good list up here. But anyone want to start me off with what's something that you noticed that's like a deficit in his thinking or behaving? Hopefully you have a big list, but what are some things that you notice? Give me one. Is that a hand, Jackson? Yeah.
Isn't the deficit, but he moves kind of erratically.
Okay.
It makes me think that he's upstarted a lot. He's kind of like erratic with his motions.
Okay.
And he thinks that's a form of stimming.
Okay, yeah, and I'm gonna write, so we're at movements, I mean. And I'm gonna kind of abbreviate just for brevity, yeah. Yeah, so let's say, I'm gonna say not acting his age. Jake, yeah,
Oh, like repeating sentences.
yeah, he does a lot of repeating.
Yeah, like was repeating himself.
Great, love it, yeah.
The squealing and yelling.
Yeah, he does a lot of that. Really. Okay,
Lack of personal attention.
so poor hygiene, and then we could say can't care for himself. These are great so far, yeah.
Terrifying impulsivity.
Yeah, terrifying. Okay, so we got a lot of impulsivity. Some of it very dangerous, right? Yeah,
Rigidity in like thoughts and behaviors.
okay. Rigidity, thoughts. Behaviors, and if you don't have one of these things on your list and you want to add it, you're more than welcome to. Yeah,
He hurts himself.
okay. What else? What else could we add up here? We could definitely add some more. Yeah.
Social disconnect, or he doesn't really have his own friends.
Okay.
Those people.
Anything else that you wrote down? What are some other things? Anyone have something else?
Fails to display lack of concern for others.
Okay. Yeah.
Lack of danger perception.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He doesn't understand social and emotional like cues.
Yeah. Anything else? It's a great list, but anything else we wanna add? I would kind of lean toward like adding to this, he doesn't have much of like a filter. Like no filter at all. He does a lot of like, with his repeating, he also does a lot of counting, like not correctly, but counting. He counts kind of like a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, you know, a little bit out of order. Anything else?
He
Yeah.
also called his sport.
Okay. So some
Maybe motor skills less developed. Or fine motor skill.
that's a good thing to point out too. Like it. Yeah.
At the movie, and they said that, I mean, he wasn't expected to actually live as long as he did.
Mhm.
Do you think that there's something physical that alongside this like mental stuff?
It could be, right? A lot of the disorders in this chapter, not necessarily some of the like smaller ones at the top, but the more global ones like autistic spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, some of the like more global genetic ones sometimes have a shorter lifespan that go with it. And so that could be part of it, or there could be an injury that we don't know about. But to do a little bit of speculating, right? Which I think is kind of nice in a way, but not in another, right? A little bit of both. Yeah.
Doesn't seem to conceptualize death in
Yeah.
conventional life.
Mm-hmm.
And when his mother dies, he starts hitting himself, and which I mean, anybody would have an emotional reaction.
Sure.
It was just a little bit right to resolve.
Yeah.
And
Repeating over and over, you know.
And then on top of it, like at the beginning, he kills the little bug and then
Yeah,
like not kind of like, yeah.
That his actions are going to do that, and then
Yeah.
dramatic reaction after to the bug.
Totally.
And
No, I
was
would
gonna
agree.
say, like, he's convinced that his dad is like in the basement or something
Sure.
like that, like.
Uh-huh. Okay, right. I think we got a good like list too. I would think we could add more, but that's really good. How about not worrying about like justifying it yet, but what are some of the diagnoses you came up with for him? Let's get a list of those. Yeah.
I wrote that he might have separation anxiety because he lost his dad at a young age.
Okay, so we can add separation anxiety, and it might not be the whole picture, but let's get a list. Yeah, anything else? What else do we think might be going on with him? Yeah.
I diagnosed him on the spectrum of
Mhm.
ASD and comorbid with an intellectual disorder.
Okay. So we got some acronyms going here, right? We got autistic spectrum disorder and intellectual developmental disorder, so ASD and IDD. Yeah. Okay. Anybody, anything else?
OCD.
OCD? Let's get some more letters. OCD, ADHD. We can always do some EMDR. I'm just kidding. Sorry, words, we get like, get a little caught up in that sometimes, I think. Okay, so looking at these, like, I think there are like some bits and pieces of smaller things that fit him, but let's talk about the diagnoses a little bit more. Number 3. So how many of you thought that maybe he had like autistic spectrum disorder on some level? Right, a lot of you. So why? Anyone want to kind of share why you thought he might be in like on the spectrum? Like, what are your thoughts to support that? Anybody? Yeah.
He has like a low level of social understanding.
Yeah.
Being able to like function within society, as well as like a lot of like the rigid behavior that comes with the disorder of like he specifically has like these rules and
Yeah.
it's hard to get out of those
Mhm.
rules. And like Jalen and I were talking about like the good night versus goodbye.
Yeah.
He can't understand like that rules also have exceptions,
Mhm.
and he doesn't know when to like correctly apply those things.
Okay.
And it's hard for him to like understand emotions like in the right way, and so he has a hard time expressing his emotions
Mhm.
in like the correct way, and like laughs in at inappropriate times.
Yeah.
You know, and behaves like at his like at the funeral, like is dancing around and laughing, right? And it's like an inappropriate behavior, but he doesn't understand that.
Okay.
And at the same time doesn't understand when other people behave in an emotion that he doesn't understand.
Great. Okay. I love it. Anyone want to add anything else? Like anything else to support like why you thought maybe he would have autistic spectrum disorder? And again, rather than saying somebody has autism, what we say is they have autistic spectrum disorder. It's considered a spectrum disorder because people can be on the spectrum of like very mild to very severe. There's a lot of things that fall under this umbrella. As a quick side note, it's something I might ask you, and they cover it in the book. How many of you have heard of Asperger's before? A lot of you. Okay, so Asperger's used to be its own distinct diagnosis. It is now considered part of the spectrum, right? And so just something to kind of put out there. It used to be that somebody could be diagnosed with Asperger's disorder, which meant that they had like kind of low levels of social functioning, but high levels of intellectual functioning. It was mainly a social thing. But now it has been absorbed into the spectrum, so it is no longer its own unique and distinct disorder. Just as a side note, something I might ask you on the final. I want to make sure that I mentioned it. Anyone else in support of ASD? There's a couple of other like little things that I think kind of seem very along the lines of autism. Yeah.
Like on the other movements.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and the rigid, the counting.
Yep.
behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, the counting, the repetitive moving, even the harming himself, all of those things are very along the lines of
Yeah.
autistic spectrum
Yeah,
disorder.
and the repeating things actually has a name. It's echolalia.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I'm kind of repeating the things over and over again. Yeah.
This would be like to like diagnosed for it. He does actually like move the retirements. He like gets some stuff for it.
Yeah, he fits a lot of the criteria for it, but it's not perfect. And Hollywood loves to do this. They love to blend stuff and make it difficult for us diagnostically, right? Some of you ran into this with your papers and your characters. Anyone have a thought as to why autism might not be the best disorder for him? Why autistic spectrum disorder might not be the best? Because I think there's one, in my opinion, that fits a little bit better. But I think if you put either of like these two, I think like you're in a good spot. But with autism or autistic spectrum disorder, oftentimes people have this in a very profound way. Now it is a spectrum disorder, so he could have very mild autistic spectrum disorder, but he doesn't struggle with his social interactions. He's still very loving and expressive. He'll hug. Those are all things that you don't always see in somebody who's struggling with this. Not always, but it's pretty common. He has a pretty high level of functioning for somebody with autistic spectrum disorder. Now, again, a whole range, but it's not uncommon for someone to be very unresponsive to the environment around them, to have a lot of like language and communication problems to the point where they struggle to communicate. That repetitive and rigid behavior in the motor movements, I think you definitely see in him. So there are elements of this, but a lot of you thought something else. Anyone want to talk about like why you thought one of these other things that we put up here? How many of you, let's see, somebody said separation anxiety, right? I forget who said it. You're like, yeah. So why did you think that?
Well, constantly throughout the entire movie, whenever someone leaves, he's always asking like, where are you going?
Yeah.
And he lost his mom or his dad at a young age.
Right.
And now he's also lost his mom.
Mhm.
So he's always been losing people throughout his life.
Yeah, right. And I think we see some elements of that, right? When people lose someone at a young age, they often struggle with people leaving. I think we can see some pieces of that in him. How about IDD? Did anyone think maybe intellectual developmental disorder? By show of hands, anyone maybe thinking that a little bit? I see some of this, so let's go to that for a second. If I had to put my money on something, I'd actually put it here, because if you look at this list, right, a lot of these things wouldn't, like, if you think of Arnie, if he were 4 or 5 years old, a lot of these things wouldn't be up here, right? It's the fact that he's like 17, almost 18, or like 18 at the end, that makes a lot of this stuff like relevant, right? The fact that he can't care for himself is abnormal for his age, but it wouldn't be if he were like 4 or 5, right? The counting incorrectly wouldn't be odd at a younger age. The like impulsivity, can't care for yourself, poor hygiene. Not acting his age, right? Social disconnect. Older and can't do those things. So with intellectual developmental disorder, people oftentimes have a very low IQ, and so they can't care for themselves or do the things you would expect for their age. And I think that kind of, to me, sums up Arnie really well, that he's not acting in a way that is appropriate for a 17-year-old. He reminds me of my kids when they were like 3 or 4, right? And so I see a lot of that in him. Some of the things fit the autistic spectrum disorder stuff, and some of them fit this. So in my mind, like these two are kind of like the core things going on. He definitely is something big and global, and then you see little bits of these other things going on as well. Yeah.
PDD NOS fit.
PDD NOS. Developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. Like, let's write that up here too. PDD NOS. Yeah. So intellectual developmental disorder and autistic spectrum disorder are both considered pervasive developmental disorders, right? And what that means is they're these big global things that are affecting everything. They're pervasive across everything. So if somebody doesn't fit that or this or any of these cleanly, which we could say is the case for Arnie, we could say that they have like pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified, which would mean that they clearly have something developmentally going on. We're seeing a lot of signs of these different developmental disorders, but they don't fit any of them neatly. And surprisingly, a lot of people don't fit disorders neatly. Like, it's not uncommon. We're not. We're messy. Yeah, it's so true.
Is it sad?
Well, you know, I thought that they removed it in 5. But there's always an NOS for every category. So I'll have to look and see. I don't know if they changed the name of it, but there's always a like catch-all for people who don't fit neatly in every cluster of disorders. So whether or not PDD is still there or not, I'll have to look, right? He definitely shows some ADHD like stuff, right? He's got a lot of hyperactivity and impulsivity and like some of those elements that are going on. But I think, like, if it were me, I would put my money on these two, right? And with the IDD, like, it's kind of subjective, but I would say he seems like with some help, he could be better, right? And that's what we'll get to in a moment here. But I think there's a lot that we could do to help Arnie, and a lot of things happening in his circumstances that aren't helping him, right? So what are some of the things that you put down for number 4 that might be contributing? Right. And maybe you're speculating a little bit. That's okay. But any thoughts as to like what might be causing or contributing to his pathology, whatever we think it is. Yeah.
I think the general tension in the house, because the father committed suicide
Yeah.
when they're young, that kind of fractured the entire family.
Yeah.
I think the stress that they all feel can kind of like goes into Arnie in some way. I mean, it makes him maybe act out more than he would have if it isn't more stable.
Yeah. That family dynamic and family culture and tension is a huge contributor. I hope every single one of you wrote the family in some way, right? In some capacity, I don't think it's helping. And they hint at it. They say his father hung himself out to dry. He committed suicide in the basement, if you didn't like pick that up. In the family, that was maybe not the most healthy environment. What else can we say? What else